Greetings, good graduates. How lovely to be here to honor your graduation in this Zoom setting. In this season of Everything is a Zoom meeting, it's worth mentioning that to join the trends, it's quite likely I am living unencumbered, fabric-free, and easy breezy from the waist down. Try and get that visual out of your mind. My name is Eunice, and what a privilege it is to be your graduation celebration special guest speaker. How appropriate to have invited me to be your special guest speaker, for as I am often referred to as special, and clearly anything that I speak of is pretty much a guess, at best. Perhaps you've heard the coin phrase, my best guess. Bingo. Well, speaking of guesses, I guess it's time to address the tissue issue. I don't know if it has caught your attention, but I have a rather large wad of tissue stuffed in my nostril. Not every graduation speaker addresses their audience with tissue crammed up their noses. Obama, Oprah, Lady Gaga, pretty sure there's no tissue issue. And to be clear, it was never my plan to make a graduation speech with tissue crammed up my nose. But as I have anticipated this day for quite some time now, who knew that out of the blue, my ideal situation would be interrupted by a bloody nose? What was a special guest speaker to do? I said to myself. I guess I can cram a tissue up in it. Though a tissue in my nose isn't ideal, it's not what I always expected of a graduation speaker. At least because I have a tissue crammed up my nose, it'll help me to not have to cancel graduation speaking. Cancellation was not an option. I guess a tissue solved the issue. Tissue in the nostril made a way. And did you know there's a ton of ways that you can cram a tissue up your nostril should there be a tissue issue? One is called the pinky push. You put your pinky in the center of the tissue and you push. Option number 2 is called the pinch and twist. You pinch it and you twist it, and then like a corkscrew, you go to town. And then, of course, there is the old nose bomb where you fold the tissue into an aeroplane and you nose bomb it into your nostril. That's one for another time. You gotta admit, it's probably the first time in graduation history that a graduation special guest speaker has had a tissue crammed up their nostril. You know what I'd do? I'd write that down. But if you're writing down stuff, write this down too. Listen, by the way, I know that if you were expecting a graduation speaker to have a through line and a theme, guess again. With all of that you know as new graduates, with Education Nation being under your belts, I'm going to tell you, sometimes you just gotta guess. The definition of the word guess is to estimate or suppose something without sufficient information to be sure. Listen, my good graduates, things may not always be so for sure. There's not a lot that is for sure. So rather than worry too much about making the surest decisions or the surest choices, though wisdom is priceless, don't be afraid to guess. Okay, make an educated guess since you're educated now, but don't let seeking out the what's for sure's cause you to freeze. Moving forward and living life will always assure you're living. I guess waiting for what is for sure just can leave you waiting. And often, whatever you think is going to be for sure ends up being way different than what you thought was going to be for sure. Sound familiar? There's very little we know for sure. I don't know much about history. Don't know much of biology. Don't know much about science books. Don't know much about the French I took. But what I do know, for sure is I love you. And I know that if you love me too, what a wonderful world this would be. And now, like a good graduation special guest speaker would do, let me come to my final point. As you may have noticed, there's a garden of photosynthesis shooting up behind me. Now, one may assume it was a foretelling of the future, and it was speaking to the fact that someday you may be gainfully employed in the garden department of the Home Depot. Or we could use it as a metaphorical object lesson that is me saying to you, the new graduate, it's a jungle out there, people. Yeah, it's a jungle out there, people. Not to scare you. But in that jungle out there, there will be well-worn, easy, unencumbered paths to take. Phew. And then, there likely will be patches in that jungle so thick that you have to use a machete to get through. There will be openings in the foliage when the sunlight shines through and illuminates your path. And then sometimes there will be spots in that foliage that get so thick that they entangle and entwine. And your path may go dark. But write this down. The sun still shines. The light that God placed in you through his Son shines brightly. And I'm going to tell you, let it shine, good graduates, because it will light your way. It will illuminate your path. And in the dark times, as it's illuminating all around you, your light will help others who want to, who need to follow you. So let your light shine, good graduates. This I know for sure. No guesses. Let your light shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Hide it under a bush, oh no, I'm gonna let it shine. Hide it under a bush, oh no, I'm gonna let it shine. You, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.